A blessed morning to all of us. Today, we will going to dig deeper on the stylistic analysis of The Telltale Heart written by Edgar Allan Poe. We are the third group, and I am Mikey Gabor to discuss first the author's writing style which transcends on the short story. So let us begin. Edgar Allan Poe. So who is he? He is an American short story writer, poet, critic, and editor who is famous for his cultivation of mystery. He is also regarded by many scholars as one of the most groundbreaking authors of early 19th century in America, and he is known for his keen intellect and vivid imagination. So based on my research, he had that characteristic which are keen intellect and vivid imagination because he is the first major writer in America to write seriously about criticism. He is born on January 19, 1809 at Boston, Massachusetts, and died on October 7, 1849 at Baltimore, Maryland. Alright. The Telltale Heart are often told by a first-person narrator, and through this voice, Poe probes the workings of a character's psyche. So it is written as a first-person narrator to let the readers discover the legitimate and authentic thoughts of the narrator, which is Edgar Allan Poe. Next, a virtuoso of suspense and horror, he is known for his gothic writing style. His style is created through his use of punctuation, sentence structure, word choice, tone, and figurative language. So as he is also known for having a vivid imagination, he is the master of suspense on horror, which depicts as his distinctive Gothic writing style. So in this short story, we can see the use of punctuation wise, such as dashes, exclamation marks, semicolons, and commas, which are favorite of Poe. Another one, figurative language colors his writings with description. Poe often wrote Gothic fiction. His most recurring theme is about death. His writing also is often questions, thoughts, and concerns about death and a lot of mourning the dead. Poe also used repetition to communicate a certain feeling or what the tone of the story is. He used strong imagery to help the reader to picture whatever it was he was trying to describe on the short story The Telltale Heart. So this is the writing style of Edgar Allan Poe.
Let us now proceed to syntactic deviation. The syntactic deviation occurs when a writer deviates from the norms of syntax. It is a departure from the normal rules of grammar. It is a kind of deviation in which poets do not follow the rules of grammar and sentence formation. From the short story, we cannot find or notice the sentence negation because it mostly tells the one-sided monologue of the killer himself. Sentence negation usually occur within a dialogue where a sentence negator like the contraction of the word don't co-occurs with a negative quantifier like the word never and the triple negation no, never, and don't. In this short story of Edgar Allan Poe, though there is no sentence negation found, there is another feature of syntactic deviation found in the story, which are the excessive use of punctuations and parallelism. This another feature of syntactic deviation is the use of excessive punctuations, which is not present on a norm of simply writing a story but was given life in the story, for it emphasizes the feelings of the narrator, where the normal construction of sentences is violated. This happens when statements and passages, which are usually indicated by the use of round or square brackets or simple dashes, commas or question marks, and exclamations, are used. A good example are found on the following statements below. There are so much instances of the excessive use of punctuations in the story, but I only give these few samples for clarification on how it violates the sentence formation. Another feature of syntactic deviation is the so-called parallelism and or parallel sentence structure, which is a type of foregrounding. According to Leach, foregrounding is the practice of making something stands out from the surrounding words or images. Leach makes a distinction between parallelism and deviation as two main types of foregrounding. He maintains that parallelism can be seen as unexpected regularity, while deviation can be described as an expected irregularity. More specifically, parallelism is the repetition of a chosen grammatical structure within a sentence. Notice the repetition of the parallel phrase dead and stone, which the same word is literally repeated, or a different word with the same grammatical category like the corpse and no pulsation.
Alright, good day everyone. I'm Edeline Pahotal and I will be the one who will report about the graphological deviation of the Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. So before we proceed on that part of my report, let us now define what graphological deviation is. Graphological deviation refers to the whole writing system, punctuation and paragraphing, as well as spacing. These are the graphological features in a text which strike our mind at first sight. They play a major role in analyzing the text before noticing lexical and grammatical features. Graphology is very useful and subtle. Capitalization, hyphenation, italicization, use of parentheses, bullets, font styles, and underlining creates a great impact and produces powerful influence on the minds of readers. Now let us all talk about the graphological deviation of the Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. In the story, the example of graphological deviation is the part where the narrator said, "True, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous. I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken, and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story." So as you can observe, the story is told in first-person point of view by an unreliable narrator who is addressing the reader directly. We can easily recognize this narrator type because it is distinguished by prominent use of first-person singular pronouns as shown in the opening passage of the story. The kind of narrator speaks in the first person I and is generally a character in the story. This is usually a limited point of view. When there is an I, the narrator, readers can only know what this I, narrator, or character sees, hears, and thinks, and are unlikely to know what other characters in the story are thinking or doing unless they are within the sight of or hearing of the narrator. The benefit of this type of point of view is that the narrator can increase suspense because he cannot tell the reader the inside view of the other characters. Example, the old man in the story. Right, now the second example of the graphological deviation in the story was in the part that the narrator said, "It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object there was none. Passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. He had the eye of a vulture, a pale blue eye, with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so by the degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and thus rid myself of the eye forever. So as you can notice, the narrator's obvious contradictory statements. He loves the old man, yet at the same time makes up his mind to kill him in order to rid himself of his evil eye. Notice also how we are drawn into the narrator's deviant mind by the definite references, the idea, and the old man. So that's all for the graphological deviation of the telltale heart. Let us all hear the lexical deviation which will be reported by Miss Lumagi.
Good day, everyone. I am Nessie Ayla Lumagi and I am here to discuss to you the lexical deviation. So first, let us define what is lexical deviation. It is usually associated with neologism, which is misunderstood as a violation of lexical rule. In neologism, an existing rule of word formation is applied with greater generality than is customary. Neologism, or the invention of new word, is one of the most obvious way in which a literary writer may exceed the normal source of the language. So now, let us go to the main topic of my lesson for today, the lexical deviation of the telltale heart. In the telltale heart, the narrator's nightly visits to the old man's chamber to take place precisely at midnight in the darkness and in silence. When he is describing how he creeps into the old man's room and what he does to him in detail, time seems to slow down and almost stand still. Every action seems to occur in extremely slow motion as conveyed in the adverb gradually, slowly, gently, cautiously, steadily, and stiltily, and others. The use of cunningly and cleverly also indicates the narrator's perverse pride in his own sagacity and skillfulness. If we observe the concordance examples in the more detail, we can see another distinctive feature, namely repetition in the use of the adverb. I move it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. I undid the lantern cautiously, oh so cautiously, cautiously, for the hinge creaked. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. I kept pushing into the steadily. So as we can see, it should be obvious that the repetition of slowly, cautiously, and steadily combined with some degree adverb very, and so creates a greater, more intensified, and prolonged pause than the usual. At this point, we as a reader following the narrator's viewpoint seem to preoccupied with the narrator's murderous action.
Good day everyone, my name is Ronsel J. Marquez and I will be discussing about the figurative languages that are used inside the story The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. First, let's have amplification. Amplification is the repeating of words or phrases in order to add more detail to it so that it might not go unnoticed, and it is found in the story in the line, I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about trifles in a high key and with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Through using the line, but the noise steadily increased, the narrator is trying to convince about his sanity. He is, however, not able to convince anybody as the story goes on. He merely delves deeper into insanity. Now let's have apophasis. Apophysis asserts or emphasizes something, apparently, by ignoring or denying. In the story, it occurs in the line, "True, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous. I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was a sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How, then, am I mad? Hearken, and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story." The hypothesis here is that the man is trying to say that he is not mad, but the way he utters words or what he is saying proves that he is really mad, that he can hear heaven, all sounds in heaven and all sounds in earth as well as in hell, and that shows insanity. Now let's have epithet. It is another rhetorical device which is found in the story, which is an adjective or adjective phrase that names an important characteristic of a character. Thus, the adjective phrase dreadfully nervous is naming the important characteristic of the narrator. Next up, we have parenthesis. Parenthesis is the use of words into text, which is used to elaborate something. It is found in the story in the line, "I undid the lantern, oh so cautiously, cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye." Poe has used parentheses to explain the narrator's reason for using lantern so cautiously. Now let's have hyperbole. So it is the use of exaggeration, and inside the story, it helps to understand the mind process of a person who is completely mad. It is found in the lines, first he says, "I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell." This is a form of hyperbole since no one really have been in heaven, especially a person who is still alive, or someone who have heard all things in earth and all things in hell. This is clearly an exaggeration. The line, "It took me an hour to place my whole head," is an exaggeration or a form of hyperbole since no one will take one whole hour or that long to place a whole head. The use of hyperbole in the second example is similar to the third example, which is, "For a whole hour I did not move a muscle." The next one is metaphor. It is a comparison of two unlike things, saying one thing is something else, not using like or as. The eye of the old man resembled a vulture's eye. This comparison shows the narrator's scary feeling about the eye, as the vulture is associated with evil in most of the literature. The narrator thought that it was the evil eye. Later, the movement of the narrator compared with a watch's minute hand shows how cautiously he was opening the bedroom door. Now let's have anaphora. Anaphora is such word or phrase which is repeated to impart emphasis, unity, and balance at the beginning of a clause. In the Telltale Heart, anaphora has been used many times. Let's read the following lines. First line, "I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell." Let's have the second line. "With what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work." Let's read the third line next. "He had been trying to fancy them causeless, but could not," he had been saying to himself. For the fourth one, "It is nothing but the wind in the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor." And the last one, "It is merely a cricket which has made a single chirp." The anaphoric use of words helps to intensify the situation and makes the atmosphere more intense and frightful. The reader waits for the next lines and events and very deeply understands the narrator's state of mind and his nervousness. Poe uses repetitions at the beginning of the story to show tension, while insanity at the end of it. In this way, both style and content mirror each other through the use of anaphora. first in the beginning and then at the end. Within the story, the use of repetition creates a frigid tone that makes it clear that the narrator is not in a stable mentality. He even does not tell what he did to hide his crime. His repetition of no tells that he erased the old man completely. Next up, we have personification. Personification is when an animal, object, or idea is given human characteristics by the author. In this short story, Death is personified as a person. All in vain, because Death is approaching him, had stalked with his black shadow before him, and enveloped his victim. This personification has helped to develop the mood. It further tells that the narrator is extremely afraid of dying and considers Death's victim powerless in his hand. The unknown disease he is suffering from may be the fear of death. Moreover, the evil eye is also a personification of the eye because I cannot be evil. Now let's have simile. Simile is a comparison between two unlike things, which uses the words like and as. The ray and thread comparison has been made using the word like in the line, so I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until at length a single dim ray like the thread of the spider shot out from the crevice, and fell upon the vulture eye. The comparison of heartbeat to a drumbeat has been done using the word as in the line. It increased my fury as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. The comparison of darkness with pitch is done with regard to the bedroom of the old man, as in, his room was as black as pitch with a thick darkness. Next, let's have flashback. Flashback means to take the readers back into the past by interrupting ongoing scene to give background information. From this point of view, the whole story is a flashback as the narrator is confessing his crime. Observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. This is the line that is an evidence that the story is a flashback of the narrator's past. Next one we have foreshadowing. Foreshadowing is the hints and clues that are provided by the writer that suggest future events in a story. It is used to create suspense in the story, which is seen in the line, but ere long, I feel myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ear. In the line, and so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and rid myself of the eye forever. Foreshadowing clues in the story hint that the narrator killed the old man out of paranoia. In the line, I have told you that I am nervous, so I am. And in the line, I smiled for what had I to fear. And also in the line, it was a low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. Next we have paradox. Paradox is an absurd and contradictory statement that can be true. This is a form of paradox since the line, I have never been kinder, or I was never kinder to the old man, is contradicting to the statement than during the whole week before I killed him. This is simply saying that killing the old man is a kind thing to do, which is not. Other than that, alliteration is also used in a story, which is the repetition of the same sounds and words with less distance between. Such is found in the line, hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. This line shows or uses alliteration because of the repetition of the words H in the words hearken, healthily, as well as the repetition of the word or the sound of L in the word healthily, calmly, tell, and hold. Also, the line meanwhile, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased, uses alliteration because of the repetition of the H sound in the words hellish and heart. Lastly, the line, it is the beating of his hideous heart, also uses alliteration because of the repetition of the H sound and the T sound. The H sound is found in the words his, hideous, and heart, while the T sound is found in the words it, beating, and heart. Next we have irony. Irony means when opposite of what is expected to happen. So the story is irony itself because after killing the old man, the narrator hides his heart beneath the floorboards along the rest of the body parts. When the police arrived, the guilt of killing causes his own undoing, and here irony is when he admits killing of the old man. So this is irony simply because why would you kill and hide someone if you will admit it to the authorities? So the point of killing and hiding the corpse in the story is senseless. Three types of irony is used. First, we have verbal irony. Verbal irony means that the character knowingly exaggerates something, but in fact he means something else. It is depicted when the man said that he was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before killing him. He calls himself calm, logical, and sane, but in fact he is really insane and agitated, who confesses his crime as a reaction to ticking sound of the old man's heartbeat. Next we have situational irony. Situational irony in the Telltale Heart tells that madmen are not reasonable, but in the story justice seemingly bothers him a lot. He successfully completes the murders and hides the body in such a perfect manner that the policemen do not suspect him. The situation is fully under his control, but he merely confesses because he hears the old man's heartbeat. The line, "I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire," also depict situational irony because he only wanted to kill the old man due to his own madness, nothing else. The next type of irony that is used is dramatic irony, which means when something happens in the story that is more meaningful to the reader than the character because the reader knows something and the characters do not. It is ironical that the police do not know about the murder while the reader knows. Dramatic irony is at its peak, as in the story. In the line, "I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. Yet it is that the policemen remain unaware and have no suspect on the criminal." Also, in the beginning, the reader becomes aware of that fact, or of the fact that the narrator is insane, but the narrator himself claims that he is not mad. In the line, "But why will you say that I'm mad? The disease has sharpened my senses." This is the end of my discussion in the use of figurative language in the story of Edgar Allan Poe.